So I set out in quite strong terms today how I believe that closer alignment, better trade relations with the EU is in our national interest. The most recent numbers suggest that the GDP hit could be worth 8% of GDP from Brexit. And at a time when we are looking for stronger growth, improvements in living standards, lower prices in the shops, it would be foolish to just carry on as we are in terms of our relationship with the EU. And we said when we came into office in the election campaign that we wanted to reset our relations, and we've already made good progress. So Erasmus, the scheme where young people can go and study abroad, we're bringing that back. We also agreed last year that we were going to negotiate a deal on food and farming, a veterinary deal with the EU, that on energy trading and electricity trading create that more single market, which is so important, especially when we see what's happened in the last few weeks play out in the Middle East.
Can I bring you specifically to the question of alignment? You struck a deal in May 2025, mostly food, which boosts GDP by about 0.3% by 2040. What other sectors are you thinking about? What does your negotiating strategy when it comes to alignment now involve? You suggested in the lecture that you gave today that the UK should align as the norm, apart from exceptional cases. So that sounds like really quite an ambitious pitch for the UK to be in step with the single market and not something that's sector by sector. Is that how you're thinking about it now?
So we should be ambitious because we want the jobs, we want the investment, and we do risk being stranded between big trading blocs, and we will miss out on the benefits and also be at risk of protectionist policies from those blocs. So it makes sense to get closer and to align more.
What's the reaction of the EU bid so far? They've been worried about cherry picking. They've seen overtures from British governments before. So well, what's different?
I'm not sure if they have seen that many overtures before. I mean, we left almost 10 years ago and there was basically no overtures for 8 years. And then Labour came into office a year and a half ago and had a manifesto commitment and were elected on that promise to reset the relations.
There's been vague talk of being closer to the EU thus far.
Within the first year, within the first few months of the government, we had that summit in London, hosted by the Prime Minister with Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, to reset that relationship. And it was at that summit that we made those commitments around Erasmus, around energy and electricity, around youth mobility and around food and farming. We will conclude those negotiations soon. And I have today sort of fired the starting gun of where we want to go next, and that is closer alignment. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be in Spain with my Spanish opposite number, Carlos Cuerpa, their finance minister. I've been in touch today with finance ministers from other European countries, setting out to them what I've set out in my speech today, and I can tell you the ambition in Europe is strong too, because they can see in a world where you've got overcapacity in some countries, you've got other countries increasing tariffs, that we, as allies, as friends, as neighbours, as big trading partners who all have shared interests, not just on the economy, but also in our own security, we've got to work together if we're going to be able to achieve those common goals. And I can tell you that the ambition is there, not just in our country, but in other European countries as well.
And so the concerns about cherry picking have been laid to rest. Should we think about this as an opening gambit? It's an attempt to start a conversation about what Britain's relationship with the EU might look like, or is this a formal proposal for what being closer to the single market will be?
Well, we have already changed our relationship, and we have done that at a sectoral level. So food and farming is a sector.
These are macroeconomically not very big sectors.
Well, 0.3% of GDP.
By 2040.
When the economy is growing by 1.3% a year, 0.3% is a pretty big uplift to the size...
To the level of GDP.
Of our economy. Well, it's almost £10 billion. So, yes, I do say that is... And that's just food and farming. That is not youth mobility. It's not energy or electricity trading. That's just one part of a deal. So, yes, I would say that is significant. And actually, just that is worth more than any of the other trade deals that we've managed to secure. And that is because, despite all the barriers that have been put in place, Europe remains our biggest trading partner. Almost half our exports go to the European Union, and that is why the biggest prize comes from closer relationship with the EU.
And given that, Chancellor, why not be bolder? 54% of people now want to rejoin the EU. 82% of Labour Party voters say they want to rejoin the EU. Are your members wrong?
We voted as a country to leave almost 10 years ago. I voted Remain. I campaigned for Remain. If we went back 10 years in time, I would vote exactly the same way again. But we have to move on. And that period in June 2016 was an incredibly divisive time for our country. And people might like to turn back the clock and might like their answer to have been different. But I do think rerunning a referendum would not be in our national interest.
So
I think
the
it would
Greens
be
have promised to
divisive.
do this. The Lib Dems have promised to rejoin the customs union. So if not rejoining, what about the customs union at least?
Well, what I focused on today in my speech was around alignment with the single market in more parts of the economy. And that is where the biggest prize is, from alignment with the single market. Mark Carney spoke in Davos about middle powers and countries that share each other's values working more closely together. And I passionately believe that we should work together with countries that share our values and alliances. I said in my speech today that we risk being stranded between powerful trading blocs. We have to decide where our national interest lies. And I've done a great deal of thinking about where I think the opportunities for Britain is, in regional growth, in innovation and AI, and that big prize of greater cooperation and partnership with the EU. And if we can do those things, there is every reason to be optimistic about our country's future. We were already the fastest growing European country in the G7 last year. We have managed to reduce our budget deficit faster and further than other countries in the G7. But most of all, I think we are well placed to take advantage of the changing landscape of business and society. We've got fantastic universities. We've got deep and liquid capital markets. We've got great entrepreneurs and an entrepreneurial culture here in Britain. We've got to believe in ourselves, and we need an active and strategic state working with businesses to unlock those opportunities. We've got the right plan for Britain. We've got to stick to that course, and the prize, if we do so, I believe is huge.